Hi, I'm Joanna Capps, a program specialist with National Endowment for the Humanities. Since the 1970s, NEH has supported and collaborated with National History Day, including in the development of free resources found on EdCitement, our educational website for K-12 humanities teaching. Under the American Rescue Plan, NEH awarded more than $87 million in relief funds to cultural and educational institutions all around the country. And so, for this year's Ask an NEH Expert video series, we've invited history professionals from a few of those institutions to talk about some of the skills that they use every day, the same skills that you'll need for a successful National History Day project.
We have to make choices. Our, I think our human tendency is to tell all the stories as fully as we possibly can, right? We want to say everything at once. We really just cannot tell all the stories all the time. It's not possible. If I give you an example, let's say we have in our collections in the Plain City Museum, we have thousands, literally thousands of pairs of moccasins. Would it be appropriate to put, 5,000, 10,000 moccasins on display all at once? Probably not. Number one, it's probably not good for the objects. Some objects really are not in the best of condition and they might not do well if they're out on display. And you as a viewer are going to get overloaded. You're not going to know what to look at next because there's too many things there. And we're really not doing those objects justice. So it might make better sense, instead of looking at all of those moccasins, to focus in more specifically. And that's where research, like you're going to do for National History Day, comes in. Kind of winnow your thoughts down, be more specific and intentional. Maybe those 10,000 or so moccasins, maybe I want to look at a specific tribe, and maybe I want to look at their beadwork patterns. Then I start pulling out those pieces of information that make most sense to me. And those moccasins from a particular tribe or community and those patterns are going to tell me an awful lot once I get where I can see the objects and I can start making connections between them and the patterns and the things that I'm seeing. It'll tell me an awful lot about the stories and the lifeways and the places that that tribe values. And then in that sense, I can use those objects to tell broader stories about that indigenous nation and their history and maybe some of their contemporary issues.
And that is a question that we've started with and changed with over the years. One of the things that is very deeply important to us here at the Burke is community consultation, because whatever we do has to be community led. If it's not community led, there's really no place for it here at the Burke. And we believe that if a community wants something, wants to learn something or preserve knowledge, it has to start with them first. So that is our first, that's our point of departure. And from there, what we move into is how do we utilize the collections that we have to build the model of what was designed from the community. So that's where the co-construction aspect comes in. We make sure that we field a lot of feedback from those folks as they continue to shape and continue to hone in on what makes our programs more suitable for our audiences that we originally sought out to reach. So that process is ongoing. It takes a bit of time, but the largest amount of time it takes us to create the program is the community consultation aspect of it, because we want it to be, again, derived from the community and for the community to preserve knowledge.
So the library is beginning to look around and think about the ways in which we have in our collections key pieces of the nation's story that we will want to bring together to highlight for a public audience to think about our nation and where we are 250 years after its founding. For example, the library has a handwritten copy of the Declaration of Independence. It has a copy of the vote roll call from the 13th Amendment. Key pieces of our national story are here, and we will want to help an audience engage with them. And that theme, that thematic frame will drive our curatorial choices, thinking about what to put together with what and how to talk about them. So often when we're thinking about gathering people together, and certainly in my role, which is about working with educators in the library, I'm always thinking about what is coming up in the scope and sequence of a particular curriculum at the moment, and what we have in our collections. What are the strengths of our collections? And that can help us figure out where to point people to resources. But it's not easy to choose when there are so many choices to make. And anything, whether it's a budget limitation, a thematic limitation, a timing limitation, anything that helps limit the scope is actually very helpful, because otherwise the story is so huge that you can't tell it.
Ask good questions. That's key, right? Focus it in. I want to see all the moccasins, maybe is not the best questions. But maybe if I said, gosh, the Eastern Shoshone live right here in Wyoming, and they're really well known for a rose pattern. I'd like to know more about that. And then focus my question in on that pattern. How did it come to be? How is it used? What does it look like? How's it changed over time? Then I'm beginning to make some sense of things. And I can start pulling primary source materials that will work for that content area. Diaries, journals, photographs. Photographs are great records of a place and a time and an event and people. Eyewitness accounts. Maybe we have an oral history from a beater who made Eastern Shoshone moccasins in this case. All of those things will be very, very useful to help us tell a story accurately and ensure that we have the perspectives that we need to have. Oftentimes when I'm researching something, I'll ask myself, whose voice is missing? I want to make sure that I'm telling as full and complete a story as possible,